felt my entire life like I was coming of age in a world that is confronted by big crises. From a young age, I was made aware of the dangers of climate change, as well as social and racial injustice. And those issues have only become more pronounced as I've gotten older. Architecture appeals to me because it is a field that is always seeking out new and creative solutions to big problems. By following a career in architecture, design becomes my way of expressing my passion for sustainability and equity. Hi, I'm Fran Di Caprio. I'm from the Twin Cities, and I'm a student in the University of Minnesota's Masters of Architecture program. The project I submitted for consideration is a maritime museum in the northern Minnesota town of Grand Marais. There's a small Coast Guard complex in Grand Marais that sits along an isthmus that projects into Lake Superior. At the tip of the peninsula, there's a popular recreation space called Artist Point, used by locals and the many tourists that come in the warmer months. The Coast Guard buildings were officially decommissioned in the summer of 2022, opening up an exciting possibility for the community to reimagine what this unique place could be. My design approach focused on welcoming the community back to the land now that the Coast Guard had turned the site over to the city. Through a series of interventions, the entirety of the isthmus becomes a destination, instead of just a liminal space that people pass through to access the end of the peninsula. I saw the potential for a new development to ameliorate what I perceived as injustices to the land and the community. First, I wanted to remove the parking lot that dominates so much of the isthmus right now. Crossing the large parking lot is not a pleasant arrival to this otherwise beautiful site, so by tearing it up and rewilding that land with native plants, the site becomes much more welcoming. Second, I wanted to radically change the existing Coast Guard buildings by converting them into open-air gathering and performance spaces. In my view, the Coast Guard buildings are directly linked to the history of the US government's forceful removal of indigenous peoples from the region. Though it would be unsustainable to simply demolish the buildings, I wanted to present a fresh start to the community, one that reevaluated the history of colonization in the region. A radical deconstruction of the Coast Guard buildings expressed this intent. The roofs, concrete bases, and main structure are preserved, with the remainder of the buildings removed, literally opening these structures that were previously closed off to the community. Some of the wood cladding could potentially be salvaged to clad the new construction. With new structure added, the garage, shed, and boathouse become open-air pavilions, while the main building becomes the stage of an amphitheater, with seating for it stretching over the garage. Third and finally, several small-scale new buildings housing the museum program are placed across the site. By spreading the museum into many smaller buildings, no single building dominates the landscape, and the entire length of the isthmus becomes activated by the museum's program. The design was inspired by the birch bark canoes made by the indigenous Anishinaabe people. Traditionally, a canoe was made from local materials, could be used in a variety of functional ways, and could be scaled to many lengths and sizes. Studying birch bark canoes inspired me to develop a modular architectural unit that could be built sustainably and serve a variety of purposes. Experimenting with physical models developed into a simple triangulated unit, which could be strung together, bent, and intersected with itself to produce a large variety of forms. As I developed this architectural module, it gave me a lot of freedom to play with different arrangements of buildings across the site. My project emphasizes sustainable wood construction methods. The whole structure is elevated off the ground, which minimizes the use of steel and concrete for foundations, while also allowing the building to avoid water damage from the frequent flooding in the area around the lake. The structure is made of engineered wood products, namely cross-laminated timber beams, supporting dowel-laminated wood panels. The exterior cladding is all wood as well. Large southern-facing clerestory windows admit lots of light to warm the space in the winter. The final site plan involved 8 new buildings, each with a distinct programmatic function. The buildings were arranged to provide a winding central path across the isthmus, while maintaining access to the water to the east and west. The buildings are spread out to ensure a view of the lake is maintained at any point along the main path. Public-facing functions, like the lobby, main hall, cafe, and exhibit spaces, are clustered to the north near the start of the peninsula, while more private functions, like the research and staff spaces, are further to the south. My hope is that this design preserves what the community already loves about the site, while welcoming more people to the beautiful and unique space. I think my approach to design would fit well within Gensler. From what I've seen from Gensler, I resonate with their focus on the future and their ability to adapt to the rapidly changing state of architecture. I see an environment that encourages individuals to grow and learn, while staying committed to collaboratively producing high-quality work. Thank you for selecting me as a finalist for Gensler's Rising Black Designer Scholarship.